Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Excited for the guest I have on this week. His name is Joe Perrone, and he has a business and he's a dad. And he and I have gotten a chance to connect through social media and email and all that. And I'm excited to have him on. So, my good friend Joe, welcome to the show, brother.
Bryan, it's such a pleasure to be on the podcast, and I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for dads and the powerful platform you have here to serve dads. I'm just grateful that this exists and happy to be a guest.
Awesome. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. It's funny. The podcast has been going now for over 3 years, and the show has really I say it's for dads, but believe it or not, Joe, I got 60% dads and 40% moms watching it and listening to it. So, uh,
That is
yeah, so it's almost split. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, the way the world is, especially now, with raising our kids, we have to be mindful of it because they're our future. So I think that this podcast, at least I hope that this podcast, even if it helps one dad out there, I feel like I'm doing my job. So it's a calling that God put on my heart a long time ago, and it's just been a lot of fun. So thank you for being on. For my listeners who may not know who you are, I want to dive into your backstory, kind of how you grew up and the things you got into and the business that you got now, the things that you're doing now. And then obviously, this is a dad podcast. So I want to know about your family, your kids as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, Bryan. Well, I'm here in the New Haven, Connecticut area, and been here all my life. Grew up in this area, and you know, went through high school and go, you don't know what you want to do at 18 years old, right? You have no real idea. You might think you know what you want to do. You might be led in a certain area, but you're kind of flying blind. You don't know what you really want to do, what you love. And that's where I kind of got into the business that I'm now in. And it's we're in the car business. We fix cars, and my dad fixed cars, and it's kind of like my cousin Vinny. My dad fixed cars, my uncle fixed cars, all that stuff. And it was the last place that my dad wanted me to end up was fixing cars. And it was a day that I came home, and he had found me a job working just as a cashier right down the street. And the guy that came in and got lunch there said to me, Joe, see you over here. You work nights, you work weekends. How would you like to have a regular, 9 to 5 job? Come here. It'll be fun. We'll fix cars. We'll teach you everything that we know about this side of it. Cause it was auto body, and my dad was an auto repair guy. And I was like so excited about it. I was like, oh, this is really cool, something different. And I had, known the guy, and I said, sure, that sounds really cool. Like, let me just talk to my dad about it and see what he thinks. And yeah, I got home. I was so excited to tell him, like, Dad, I'm gonna get into the car business. He's like, why? Why are you gonna do that? We've all been there, right, Bryan? we
Exactly.
think we think we're in our brilliance, and then dad was not too thrilled about it. And I did a little salesmanship, and he liked the guys that I would eventually go to work for. So he gave it his blessing. He said, just one thing, Joe, I just want you to know that no matter what you do, I want you to just do your absolute best. And if you say you gave it your best every day and you did the best you could, then that'll comfort me knowing that you did the best you could, and it'll serve you well in life. So with that, I started my career in the automotive business. It was 18, 17, almost ready to turn 18. And there I went and started emptying trash pails and cleaning cars and sweeping floors, and it started really from the bottom. And it was nothing about really fixing cars. It was a lot of, it was the gopher. I knew what everybody took for coffee, and all the things we know, Bryan, right? When you start at the bottom and you're the grunt, right?
Exactly.
And would come home, and Dad would just kind of laugh and chuckle and say, "I was fixing cars," I'm like, well, learning as I go here, and eventually I had the ability to fix cars and learn quite a bit, and got to the point where I learned a lot of the different areas of my job in the shop that I was in, and got to a point about 10 years in where one of the owners business partners had passed away. It was kind of untimely. He was a dad of 7 kids, 40 years old, drops dead of a massive heart attack. And really that's really where learning about what I'd seen my own dad go through. He lost his dad really early on. He was 13 when he lost his dad, and he lost him at an early age. Obviously, dad died young, and now my coworker, the guy that got me into this business, he's dead at 40. 7 kids. And this all started becoming a lot bigger than job and work and life, and really at that time, 2004, was had to do a reality check at a young age. Saw my dad go through this, saw a coworker go through this, and my life really changed at that point. And after the soul searching, I decided that my dad's advice of doing the best I could, really wasn't doing the best I could be doing in that business, and started asking the owner, like, where will this take me in 10 years from now? Where am I going to be here in 10 years? And started learning about how to really move up and start taking ownership of a business, start treating the business as if it's your own. And this was really living into that advice that my dad had given me to if you're going to do your best, if you're going to be in this business, do your absolute best. Make sure you're giving this your all. And nobody had taught me that. Nobody had really given me that advice. It was just something that I had found, and through seeing these dads die early, and what legacy did they live? They had kids and sons, and they had somebody that they need to look up to, and started thinking about starting my own family. Like, what kind of dad was I going to be? How would my kids see me? And I was still ways off. So I began to treat that business that I was in as if it was my own business. And Bryan, I could tell you the really long story of how we took ownership of the business, and the exorbitant amount of money we paid for it, and the trials and tribulations that went through purchasing the business that we were employees of. And that's a whole nother podcast. We can beat that story down for a long time, but the basis of that story was I did what my dad told me to do. I did my best. I got my business partner and we bought this business, and we were now business owners. And that was kind of one of the things that I had thought this was a finish line, but it really wasn't. This was a starting point now for a new way of being. Who was I going to be as a man? Now I'm a business owner. Now I'm responsible for other people. I have employees now. They have families. They're dads. We have all guys working for us. Not opposed to any females that want to come into our business, but typically it's not a desirable business that a lot of females come into, but a lot of guys, and they're all dads. And now I have to be a leader, not only in my own family, but I have to be a leader here. And I have to, what I value as a dad, what I value as a man, what I value as a person. Now I have to lead that, and I have to lead by example. So I have to line up all my values, business values, my personal values, my parenting values. I have to line all this up. And what a huge responsibility that is, right, Bryan? You know, I can't be one way on Saturday and Sunday when I'm home and then expect to do something totally different on Monday. The values won't line up. It won't line up. I'll be stressed out. I'll be miserable. And I'm just learning this as I go. So get to 2014, and I'm in the first year of marriage. My wife's pregnant with our first son. We don't know it's a son yet. And I'm completely burnt out in my business. Completely burnt out. I mean, I would throw vendors out of my office. I had gotten consumed by running this business and being everything to this business, being everything to my family, and just new marriage and all the responsibilities that we know, right, Bryan, that come with providing for our family, and buying a house, building a house, restoring a house, making sure everybody has nice cars to drive, and nice things, and all this stuff just really overtook me and overwhelmed me. And it became more about the providing and the things. It became about the status and the money, and how much is enough, and all this stuff. And I lost my way of what I truly value. And it was kind of easy to lose because I'd never really set it in concrete on what I truly value. So 2014, we had just finished the paying off the business. We had just purchased the building that we were leasing from the owner of the business. And it was just a really hectic and stressful year that had really no way other than finish paying off this business, buy this building, and then you'll be free. Then it'll be all free from there, right? Well, now I have a whole new scenario here. Wife's pregnant, about to have a son, still burnt out, still working all these hours, trying to just pack it away and get ready. And August 2014, middle of a busy work day, all kinds of things going on. I just collapsed in the middle of the floor at my business. Just, I don't know, Bryan, if it's a panic attack, a heart attack, anxiety. I have no clue what is going on right now with me. All I know is I had felt those feelings before, and now this was the day that it really brought me to my knees. And I could tell you that it was the bright lights of the as they're got me on a cart and I'm going through triage and I'm going to get all these things hooked up to me. I could tell you it was then. I could tell you it was in the couple days afterwards, but somewhere in that period of time, I realized that this wasn't going right. Something needed to change in my life. And it was a really a sobering moment for me, knowing that I have another person that we've created that I'm going to be really responsible for. I'm going to be a dad in less than 3 months. I'll be a dad for the first time. And the example that I was going to set just became like forefront in my mind. Joe, what kind of dad are you going to be? What kind of example are you going to set for your son? Are you going to want to, you're going to want him to see you getting up really early, coming home late, just tucking him in bed at night, reading him a story, just kind of at the end of the day, you're zonked out, checked out, thinking about everything but actually the responsibility that you have right in front of you. Concerned about the money, concerned about the stuff, concerned about all the crap. Like, is that the example that you want to set? And by my actions, that's the example I would be setting. And it was in the middle of a just a really dark night for me that I just really had to do some soul searching and really lost way of my faith and had to come back to that. and what I grew up with as a young child and all through my early years into my teenage years, we were based on Christian values, and that was what we were brought up on. And I had to go back and study that again and really see what that meant now for me. And through all of that, I found Jim Rohn, which I never knew who Jim Rohn was prior to 2014. And I love your smile because you know how earth-shattering, groundbreaking Jim Rohn's simple message is. And in the middle of a dark night, not knowing what to do next, I hear, for anything in your life to change, you have to change. Boy, Bryan, that just slapped me in the head. Like, so you mean it's not my mother-in-law? Joan, if you're listening, it's not you. We've already covered that. That's my mother-in-law. That's my disclaimer, Bryan. And it's not the weather, and it's not traffic, and it's not my employees, it's not my wife, it's not my neighbor, it's me. You're saying that if anything is to change in my life, I have to change. And that's what he was saying. And so now I'm a new dad, and I have a beautiful boy. Our oldest son is Bruno. And I'm looking at Bruno, and there were nights where I'd have Jim Rohn just playing as we're sitting there and having our time together, because I'm in training right now, Bryan. I'm in training. This was Mandarin Chinese to me before August of 2014. I'm learning as I go here. And that message of what kind of dad am I going to be? What kind of example am I going to set for this guy? This is real now. This isn't, in theory, this is the real life here. We're doing this. And as I really got clear and slowed down and thought about, okay, well, where are the areas that I need to change in? What do I, where do I start? And really the first thing that I worked on was just changing my attitude, changing my outlook, changing, I complain, Bryan. I complain about everything. Such a complainer, looking back, geez, wonder how anybody even was around me, because it was like, I would complain about everything. And I said, this is not what I want. I want to change this. So I what's the opposite of complaining? Being gratitude. I'm like, okay, well, how do I be grateful every day for this life? I have this beautiful son. I got a beautiful wife. We have a nice home. You got a business. You got great employees. And I would just start going from there, man. Just start going from there on this gratitude journey of all these things, and start writing it down. Start somewhere I could see it and just have it right in front of me. And man, for anything in your life to change, you have to change. Okay, we're going to change. We're going to go from complaining to gratitude every single day. Doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost a dime. But it's something that you could do every day. And I just built that habit. And I just stayed on that habit. And I got it bigger. And the list got longer. And now you can just be grateful. But you know what? Why don't you share that gratitude? Why don't you reach out to people and just tell them how grateful you are, and the people that are in your life that are making a difference for you, and the people that have mentored you, and the people that you learn for, how, you're in this dad, we're on a dad podcast. So you're in this dad role, and, there's books, and there's authors, and there's podcasts, and there's people that can mentor us, right? This podcast is a prime example, right? If you're listening out there, send Bryan some love, send Bryan some gratitude. Let him know what kind of difference he's making for your life. because now once we're reaching out to the people that are mentoring us, that are helping us, that are setting an example for the people that we need to be, man, sending them a little, dropping them a little note of gratitude, dropping them some love in their inbox, because they need the strength to carry on this message. And iron sharpens iron. We know this, right, Bryan? And as I just started doing that, man, people just lined up to help me, just lined up to help me do this dad thing, do this business thing. I'm a new husband, doing the husband thing. And I just found so many leaders. We like to use the word leader and throw leader around, and there's visionary leaders and there's authentic leaders and there's all different. It's just there's leaders. You're either a leader or you're not a leader. It's just black and white. You either are or you're not. And if you want to know if you're a leader or not, just look and see if anybody's following you. If anybody's following your example, if anybody's, if you're not creating a leader, you're not a leader. You can't be appointed to a leadership role and be a leader. And I'm learning how to be a leader in my family. I'm learning how to be a leader at my business. I'm learning how to help those guys that work alongside me be better dads. Educating them a little bit more. And I'm learning, and we're all learning together. And that's where this all began. I got my kick in the pants going to that emergency room. I heard Jim Rohn, and I decided that it was a change. And we could keep going from there. But that's the base of it, Bryan.
All right. So let me ask you this before we dive into everything that you just talked about. How many kids do you have?
So I have two boys, Bruno, we mentioned, and Marcello, who's my second guy. He'll be 4 on January 2nd. And he's just a blessing to us. And Bruno's a blessing to us. And just love being their dad. I'll see the other dads at soccer or taekwondo and say Bruno's dad. It's like, oh, okay. So that's my official title, is Bruno Marcello's dad.
How old is Bruno?
Bruno just turned 8.
Okay.
Just
All
turned
right.
8.
So 8 and almost 4. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I've got a few years on you. My boys are 24 and 21. So I got a few years on you, but let's back up a little bit, because you talked a lot about the influence and the impact that your dad had on you, and just the words that he used to encourage you. He may not have been 100% in alignment or in agreement with the decisions you were making as far as staying in the automobile business, but he supported you, and he told you, if you're going to do it, go all in, do it, give it 100%. That's great advice coming from a dad, to say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with you, the decision that you made, but if you're going to make this decision, I'm 100% supportive of it, and I'll 100% back you of it, as long as you give it 100% yourself. And that's great advice. And that's something that I really strive for with my boys. It's like, look, you can be whoever you want to be, whatever you want to do, you can do. But if you're going to do it, give it all you got and be committed to it. And that was a decision that you decided to make. You're going to go all in, and it ended up essentially hurting you. You ended up really struggling with your anxiety, things that were going on in the business. And now you've got a new marriage and a son that's about to be born, and you've got all this stress. So before I go into other things, learning from that experience of knowing the stresses that you have in your life, you said it was, you don't know what it was that really kind of woke you up. You said it was Jim Rome, all those kinds of things. But what advice would you give to dads that maybe at a breaking point, at dads that may be going, I've got all this going on, and I have this huge responsibility coming in, this family that I have to raise, and I don't know how to get out. I don't know how to get to a point where I'm 100% happy and and my life is fulfilled. I feel this just immense amount of stress. The reason I ask you that question is because that was kind of the point of my podcast. My podcast was really to say, hey, uh, as a dad myself, I raised two boys, worked in corporate America, very successful in corporate America. But at the same time, I coached all their sports. I was a all committed, coach, raised them and coached them all the way up through high school. And yet I was, even though I was successful in my business, I was still able to be a successful dad. Now there were stresses along the way, but I found that I found out how to do that and be happy at doing it. Um, so for dads that may not know, hey, I've got this huge responsibility coming up, and I feel like the world is just caving in on me. How do I get out of it? What advice would you give to dads that may be feeling that stress or that pressure, and how do they get over it or accomplish being that happy dad?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question, Bryan. For me, it was really getting clear on what I wanted. What example was I going to set? Not
Mhm.
what did other dads do? Not looking to the left or looking to the right. Focus on my four walls and decide, cut off any other option, that this was the path that I was going to go on. And this would be success to me. Set my own metrics for what a successful dad would be. And you said it. I knew that similar to you coaching your children's sports, that would be really important to me. We're from an athletic family. My boys play soccer. My oldest plays soccer, and he's involved with Taekwondo. I knew that I would want to be that dad, like you're saying. I want to be there to coach. I want to make sure I'm there on the sidelines. I'm not going to miss a game. I'm not going to miss him getting his belt promotion at Taekwondo. I'm going to make sure that I'm there. Those were the most important things to me. So I decided all those important, forecasted those important moments. He's in the choir at school. So they just had a nice performance. I want to make sure I'm at that performance. That is number one for me. So dads that are out there, set your parameters for what success looks like to you as a dad. You know what your kids are involved in. You know what they like. You know what you guys are doing together. Put those things at the top of the list. These are our can't miss events, the practices, the recitals, the games, the promotions, all these things that we need to be there for our kids and be fully present. Cell phone in the car, laptop in the car, fully present, fully there, fully attentive to what our kids need. Because what they need is our example. We can tell them what we value. We could drill the value into their head, but if they don't see it from us, there's a values mismatch, and they're not going to understand that value. They're going to say, well, dad and mom are saying this, but they're doing this, and it doesn't align. So you're going to create issues with the kids trusting that value is actually something that you're committed to. So first things first, I would look at what you do on a daily and a weekly basis and make these can't miss events. Put them in your schedule. I love, getting my son from the bus stop is just something that I said, I want to be that dad. I want to be the dad that's putting him on the bus and taking him off the bus. And my wife's here, and some days she puts him on and takes him off. Some days it's both of us that put him on and take him off. But that's something that I want. I don't know if any other dads have that on their list of things that they're committed to doing. But I wanted to commit to that, and I said, it's in my calendar. 3:20 p.m. I'm there waiting for him at the bus stop. And he could set his calendar by that. And I don't know why. That's just was something that was important to me. So it's in my calendar. All his games are in my calendar. All these things that whatever's important to you, dad and mom that are listening, put it in your calendar. Just like we put all of our important moments and our important appointments and schedules, everything goes in the calendar. put those most important people in your calendar.
Yeah, the calendar thing is huge because I always say if it's not in your calendar, if it's not on your schedule, you're going to either forget about it or other things. We have various things that go on throughout the day that'll derail us, and if it's not in your calendar, it'll completely get overlooked or forgotten. So that's something that I am very big on. My wife and I, as a matter of fact, we to this day we Sunday evenings we talk about what do we have going on this week, whether it's in her, she's a teacher, and her things that she's doing and the things that I'm doing at work, and then also family, what do we have going on with the family. We get that stuff situated on Sunday evenings, so I know that, hey, if there's something I have to do or be at or attend to, it's in my calendar Sunday evening. So that is super super important. I think that I have, as my boys grew up, I had these non-negotiables, and they were the things that my kids were doing, whether it was sports, practices, games, school events, whether it was, uh, open house, parent teacher conferences, all those things. Those were my non-negotiables. Those are things where I was going to be at no matter what. And my job, being in corporate America, I had to let them know these are the things that are important to me. And if you're not willing to align with those things that are important to me, and you think I have to be here for those at the company, then I'll go find a job somewhere else. I mean, that was how important it was to me. I'll work somewhere else. And I made sacrifices over the years. I was a coach, so there were many times that I had to leave at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to attend to practices or games as a coach. I just made sure that I was in the office that much earlier. Some days I was in the office at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I could make sure that I got the work done for my company, but also I was able to get out the door at 2 o'clock. Those are just sacrifices that I made to show my family that, yes, I still value you and you still are important to me, and I'm making the sacrifice to prove it to you by doing this. And so that was something that I did. I love the fact that, kind of rewinding a little bit, I love the fact that you talk about, you grew up around cars. I grew up, I want to tell you this story because I grew up around cars too. I purchased my very first car. You'll appreciate this, Joe. I purchased my very first car at the age of 13. I had obviously no license, but it was a 62 Chevy Nova and had nothing in it, no engine, no interior, nothing. And I purchased it for $50. I was working, I had a paper route. So had a paper route business, and I used my paper route money to buy this car. And my dad and I towed it home. I was sitting on a Knutson crate in the car, hands on the steering wheel. My dad and his truck was towing it, and we only had to go a few miles, so I was just steering. That's all I had to do was steer at 13, steer it back to the house. And yeah, I spent the next 3 years fixing up that car. My dad and I out there working on it, the engine, the interior, we painted it, we got the interior upholstered, did a whole. I bought another car to take parts off, another Nova to take parts off of it. Did that for 3 years till I turned 16, and I had this car. I'll send you a picture of it. I had this car that was done up, had pinstriping, centerline rims, had a three on the tree, had a 3-speed on the column, straight 6-cylinder, the whole deal. And I drove that car all through high school until I changed the engine out. Later in my high school years, I changed the engine out, put a 327 in it, small block, and yeah, I love that car. And I had that car, went into the Marines after I got out of high school, and I had that car. And then I met my wife. And being in the military, you don't make a whole lot of money. And my wife and I wanted to get married, and I didn't have the money to buy an engagement ring. So I did something that I regret today, not because of our marriage, but because I wish I still had this car, but I sold it so I could get the money together to buy her engagement ring. And I ended up selling it for $4,000. And for a 20-year-old kid, $4,000 was a lot of money. So I sold it for $4,000 to a guy in town and bought my wife's engagement ring. And I'll tell you something, to this day, that guy still has my car. My dad, many years later, this is like last year, my dad was at a car show, and saw the car. And he approached the guy and said, "Hey, I think you bought my son's car." And he said, "This is it," because he had changed it all up. It was completely different. The paint job was different, everything. And my dad's like, "This is the same car?" And he said, "Yeah, it's the same car." And yeah, I just so my dad took a picture of it and sent it to me. I couldn't believe it. Anyways,
Oh,
just a little sidebar.
great
Uh,
story. That touches. You have no idea, Brian. That touches my heart because we've, similar stories. But yeah, that's a great story, man.
yeah,
Love
that
that. Love
the
that.
but those are the things that my dad did with me. He was into cars. He got me into it. And as much as, I was a teenager, I had good grades in high school. I played sports in high school. I had a job in high school. And then on my spare time, I was working on this car. And I will say though, Joe, those were the only things that I did with my dad. My dad worked a lot of hours. My mom and dad worked a lot of hours. They couldn't come to a lot of things that I participated in. I can count on one hand how many sporting events they came to watch me play. They just couldn't be there because they had to work. And I just knew at a very young age that I wasn't going to be that way as a dad. I knew that that was not going to be my life. I knew I wanted to be more for my kids. And I'm grateful for those lessons that my dad taught me as far as building cars and all that kind of stuff. And he taught me how to be a good man, and he loved me and all that kind of stuff. But he was disconnected as far as everything else goes in my life. And that was just how it was back then. And I just knew I wasn't going to be that way with my kids. Now, speaking of that, the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to ask you. You talk a lot about your dad. What kind of lessons did your dad teach you about being a dad? Because you talk about your dad and him teaching you about the importance of running a business, and if you're going to do this, go all in. But what kind of lessons did you learn from him to be a dad that maybe you use today or don't use today?
Yeah. Another great question. My dad was the guy that would you could depend on him. So he worked by day at a mechanic shop, and he would tow cars at night. And my father was a man of his word. If he said he was going to help you out and do something, you could take that to the bank because he would certainly help you. So my father always gave people his word, stuck to his word. He was definitely a man of his word. He's got people that will still come up to me and say, he lives here, but he goes back and forth to Florida. He and my mom talk to him almost every day. He actually called me right before we jumped on the podcast, wish me good luck. It was always something that he instilled in me to keep your word and to be a person of your word. And people will still come up to me and say, "Man, how's your dad doing? Just tell him I was asking for him." And they love my father. And so that's a great example that I learned that I don't know if he knew that was the example he was setting. He was just being himself. So as I would see that example that he set for me, I'm like, well, that's something that I want to aspire to. I want people asking about me like that. And I want people to, when I'm not in the room, how are they going to talk about me? And, my dad has people saying really good things about him when he's not around, and has a really good name. And, that proverb, good names, better to be chosen than find riches and gold. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's pretty close. But that's my father, and he's a very rich man in that sense, where his name is well spoken. I'm happy to be a junior to his senior.
That's cool. When you talk about it like that, I think about this last week. My dad, my own father, just retired, and he's 70 years old, and he worked at this company. He was an engineer at a hospital, and he worked there for 32 years. And I had only been there when I was a young child or younger. I had only been there, a couple of times, so I didn't really know the people that he worked with. But I drove 4.5 hours. One of his coworkers had reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, we're doing this little retirement party for your dad. I don't know if you can be here or not, but if you can, great. This is the time and day." And so I drove up 4.5 hours, drove up to surprise him. It was a surprise retirement party for him. And when he walked in the room and saw me, he couldn't believe it that I was there. He was so happy. But that was a great moment. That connection that we had, how excited he was to see me at his retirement party. But the fact that all these people from this hospital, is a huge hospital, and all these people came in and to witness his retirement party and to witness him saying goodbye, and all these people coming up to him, all these people coming up to me and saying what an impact he was on their life and how great he was as somebody that they worked with, um, just spoke volumes of his character and the type of person that he was. I may not have always agreed with everything that he did or didn't do. We may have butted heads several times throughout our lives, but witnessing that and witnessing the love from all these people and how much they respected and cared about my dad, just spoke volumes. And it just showed me that that's how I want to be viewed, kind of like what you were talking about. I think about when men carry this responsibility of providing for the family and they feel like they have to work these 80-hour weeks so they can provide roof and clothing and food and all that for their family. They carry this stress. And I think about the moment that I'm about to go meet my heavenly father and the people that I want around me. Have I really lived a fulfilled life and met the goals that I wanted to meet, and built a legacy in my family? Not so much in my business or the things that I'm doing outside the home. I say that your legacy starts in your home, not outside your home. And too many men now think that our legacy, my legacy, is going to start outside the home because I'm trying to build this business and I want to pass it on to my kids. Well, that's great, but what are you missing? What are you missing in your home? If you're unavailable because you're trying to build this business or you're trying to build this legacy outside the home, what are you missing inside the home? What are you missing with your kids? Because it goes in a blink of an eye. Your kids are, 2 years old, and the next thing you know, they're 22 years old, and you've missed so much time. So for me, it was about building my legacy outside. I mean, inside the home, and that's as much as my dad had to work. I could see that, yeah, he's got all these people around him, but I showed up, my mom showed up, I had, my cousins showed up. I mean, just a bunch of family showed up to support him in his decision. So I can see that the legacy really is going to carry on inside the home. Even though he wasn't a 100% committed dad, he tried. But for you, being this business owner and a dad that has two young boys that look up to you and value the things that you do inside the home and outside the home. What does your legacy look like, Joe? What does the legacy of Joe look like when you're, on at that place where you're going to go meet your heavenly Father?
I think about this often, and we're here to serve other people. We're here to our legacy is, how many people did we touch? How many people's lives did we have an impact on? How many people were we able to serve while we were here? And I'm not talking about people pleasing. I'm not talking about this self-righteous thing of I helped all these people. It's about the legacy and the example that you set for people. And when I think about legacy, for me, it's about those examples that I'm setting for the kids. I think about how they're going to be as dads. I think about how they're going to be as grandparents. I'm thinking about how all the lessons that I learned. Am I sharing the lessons I learned from my dad? Am I sharing the Dad Up podcast? Am I letting them know? I write in the margins of a lot of my books, and I write notes to my kids in the margins of my books. So the legacy of that would be like, this is a lesson that I learned way back in 2020, in the 20s. Way back in the 20s, I learned this lesson. And my journals, I'll leave little notes to my boys in my journals. In business, we have, there's ups and downs in business and life. There's ups and downs every day, but I'll put in my journal when I was having a down moment. And then I'll make sure that I write a little asterisk and say, 2 weeks later, this problem was something I shouldn't even worried about. just so it's a little reminder for them. Yeah, you could read that from Jim Rohn, or yeah, you could read that from any of the authors that we love and know. But here's your dad telling you that this is something that we had a little cash flow issue in our business, or we had an issue with a vendor or a client or something. It was something I was really worried about here back in the 20s. But here's a little asterisk, and 2 weeks later, this problem was resolved. It was a non-issue. It was a nothing burger. It was something that just shouldn't have been worried about, but it all worked out. And I hope one day my kids will see that, and they'll see the journals, and they'll go through that, and it'll be at the perfect time where they need something that I can't be there for. And coupled with the example that I set and the resources that I've left them, they could go back and just handle it and have their father, advice right there for them. And it's something that's helped me. So I know it will help them.
Yeah. Journaling's huge. I don't think enough dads do it. It's not, dads may think of it as like a diary. It's not really a diary. I journal every morning. I'm actually going through a journaling challenge right now where I'm doing 30 days, or excuse me, 45 days. I'm on day 30. So 45 days of journaling as much as I can. I used to do it just in the morning, just a couple sentences or two, just to say, hey, this is what's on my thoughts first thing in the morning when I wake up, get them out on paper so that way I can clear my mind and get ready for the day. But now I'm journaling in this journaling challenge. I'm journaling 7, 8, 9 times a day, just so I can, keep my thoughts, fresh, keep my thoughts down on paper and get my mind clear. So it's just a little journaling challenge I'm doing right now. But if you dads out there, or even moms out there, if you're not journaling, just getting your thoughts out on paper is a huge help. And plus, it'll help you get your day better. It'll help you perform better. It'll help you be a better parent. It'll help you be better at your job or your business. So take journaling up. I highly recommend it. It's just kind of a way of just kind of cleansing your mind. But I love that. And I love the fact that you talk about things that don't matter, later on. It affects you right now. But I think about something, and I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard it. I remember hearing, if it doesn't matter 5 years from now, it shouldn't matter 5 minutes from now. So I think about that, and I picture traffic. You're sitting in traffic and you're in a hurry, and you're like, man, I'm hitting every light, or this guy's driving me nuts because they're driving, the speed limit. No one drives the speed limit, right? Driving the speed limit, or I'm stuck in traffic. I can't get to my place on time. And I think, okay, 5 minutes from now, this really isn't going to matter. 5 years from now, this isn't going to matter. So why am I letting it bother me right now? It is what it is. You just got to accept it and deal with it. So if it doesn't matter to you 5 years from now, it's not going to matter 5 minutes from now. That's just kind of right. my little tip there. Well, let me ask you this: if the business, what's the name of your business?
So I now with the time freedom I've created in our automotive businesses, it's a passive business, and now I focus primarily. Most of my focus is on helping dad business owners free up time in their business, free up time in their life. So you can come see me at Joe Perrone, my name, joeperrone.biz. And I'd love to meet dad business owners that are looking for time freedom, looking for another way, looking to create something that means something to them and their legacy.
Is that helping, regardless of the business they're in, helping them not only be better at their business, but also better in their families as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. So I was going to ask you, where can people go to look you up, all that kind of stuff, but joeperrone.biz, right?
Awesome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Give me some examples, of dads that you've spoke to or recently talked to that you've kind of given them some advice or guidance or things like that.
Yeah, I had a dad recently that just felt really beaten down, really successful in his business from a financial standpoint, provided for his family for many years, got a good business. But he's realizing that his children are getting up there close to teenage years, and he missed a lot of their childhood. and was really beating himself up over it. And I reminded him that, you know, your children still have a long life. You could start today. And the beating himself up over it, we did a lot of work around that. And we did a lot of work around what he actually did create for them. And his children are great human beings. And just he's done such a great job with them, and actually just lightening that load that he felt of, man, I missed out and I shoulda, woulda, coulda. We actually took some of the things that he actually did, and we created a highlight reel for him of how he's been as a dad, and went into his business and helped him find some time in his business, find some key people in his business that are actually better at doing some of the things that he is in the business, create a little better team, a little strategy for freeing up some time for him. And now he has that space that he's looking for in his business. He did that exercise where he really got clear on his path, and he spent a lot of time looking at what other business owners were doing and what their plans were doing, and not enough time on what he exactly wanted. So we created a plan for him, and it's his plan. This is not a cookie cutter. This isn't boilerplate. This is what he wanted. This was his dream, his design. And now I help him stay accountable and stay on track with that. And it's really helping him. And it's exciting for me. And you could see the smile on my face. Those are the people that I love helping, because for me, it's something that I wish I would have learned sooner, but I'm glad I went through the lessons and glad I went through the paces so I could help other dads and other business owners.
That's awesome. I think that's so great that you're doing that, because too many dads now struggle in just those areas. They beat themselves up over, you know what? I wish I could have been there more often for my kids, and now they're older and I feel like I missed out. And instead of looking at it from that point, you got to kind of change the perspective and look at what you can do now to really change your life and their life now. Yes, you may be starting from ground zero again, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. You just get it done right now, start it right now, and work on finding time. Like I talked about earlier, about finding time to not only be there for my business, but also be there for my kids. I had to find the time. So huge. And we obviously talked about scheduling and all that kind of stuff, which is massive. So that's awesome that you're doing that. I think it's a huge help to dads, and moms for that matter. Huge help to parents to really help them not only be better in their business, but also be better parents for their kids, because they are our future, as we know. So cool. Well, Joe, listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, honor having you on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I look forward to growing our relationship in the future, my friend.
Oh, certainly, Bryan. Again, thank you so much for what you do for dads. Congratulations. You're in the top 10 of podcasts. And man, whatever I could do to help you get to the top, man, because you're doing great work. And it's just an honor to be serving dads alongside you. And I love what you put out there on LinkedIn. And just I'm a big fan. So thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it, Joe. Listen, guys, if you're not checking out what Joe's doing, if you need some help, maybe you're struggling in a certain area within your business and you're trying to find that more time for your family and for your business to help be successful in both areas of your life, reach out to Joe. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn or go to his website and reach out to him there. But I know he would love to help you. So make sure you guys are checking out what he's doing. And then as always, make sure you guys are subscribed to my podcast. If you're not already, go to the YouTube page, make sure you subscribe, or a podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any awesome guests that I have on every single week like Joe. So make sure you guys do that. I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.